Hello and welcome to What Do You Want to Watch, the Exposure Network's premier media podcast. Every fortnight we get together to talk about movies, TV and online content and help you answer the question, will movies come out this year? Certainly hope so. I'm your host, Ashley Hobley. Joining me this episode, Dylan Blight.
Will movies release in cinemas this year?
Next year? That's probably a better question. This year.
This year. No, this out. Yeah, this year. Hey,
this is out 1st of January. 2021.
Talking to the future.
It's crazy. Everything's changed. You know, coronavirus gone.
Yeah.
Fast food's healthy. It's crazy.
Fast food's healthy. Yeah, I was about
to... running gag here at the Exposure Network. We got a big episode today. We'll be talking about what's in our watch history. We'll be covering a little bit of news, and we'll be talking about our personal top 10 shows of 2020. I will just mention right off the top, you might have noticed there is a segment missing. The What Do We End Up Watching segment. We're probably looking to scale that back in 2021. Obviously, we've got our new podcasts, all new Marvel cast, which sees us watching a lot of stuff. Obviously, we've got some other after-show stuff in the works. We're probably going to be talking about all those Star Wars plus shows somewhere. We might do some other... We're hoping to do some more special episodes. Extra episodes of What Do You Want to Watch. So you don't have to wait every fortnight to get a new episode. So... cutting the What Do We End Up Watching segment unless there's something significant or it's like a special holiday or something like that. But yeah, just FYI going forward. Speaking of special episodes, we did a couple of review discussions, spoiler review discussions for new things that came out. We'll just give you a couple of our spoiler-free thoughts. So Soul, the latest Pixar film, dropped on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting film. Obviously, a lot of creative ideas. Very much, it's a film in which a black middle school teacher is trying to chase his dream of becoming a jazz musician. He seems like he's going to get his big break, and then he dies. You know, that old chestnut. And then has to deal with trying to get back so he could live his dream and all other hijinks into. But yeah, I found it a really enjoyable experience. Well scored, beautifully animated. One of the at the top of my list for best animated films of the year. But yeah, Dylan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on Soul?
Beautifully animated, great music, surprising Trent Reznor score. We'll call that out every time someone asks me about the movie, I guess. Some really good jokes and gags amongst it. I didn't love it as much as you because I had I guess you'd call it a problematic questioning about 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the movie that I can't talk about without spoilers. So it didn't ruin the movie for me. I still enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as nearly much. Yeah, it kind of took me out of the experience. So go listen to the spoiler cast to hear more about that.
Yeah. Then we both watched Wonder Woman, which came out of the cinemas in Boxing Day. Of course, Wonder Woman 1984, following Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, who we've seen several times now, directed by Patty Jenkins, in which she's in, Maxwell Lord has come across this special stone that grants wishes, and then hijinks ensue. Chris Pine's character comes back. Kristen Wiig goes...
I like how the description for both these movies so far have been thing, hijinks ensue.
It's true. It's funny how that always happens. I liked it. I had a good time in the cinema, which we'll get to in a moment. I don't think it's an amazing film. It's not going to be on my best films of the year, but I had a good time. I think it's a really different superhero film to what we've seen before. Very action light, I think, which probably for some people is going to turn them off. But Dylan, I believe you were turned off for other reasons.
Yeah, I just found it a bore and a bit of a mess, and I think it's one of the worst superhero movies. So that's Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm the curmudgeon, the Dylan, here to tell you that all your movies you like suck.
Yeah, go check out our spoiler review discussion of that. to find out, so Dylan can like let you full on know what's wrong with that film. Yeah. But you went to the cinema for that one, and like my cinema experience for Wonder Woman, the cinema was quite full. How did you feel about going back to the cinema?
Yeah, I guess it's just, I don't know. All I can help feeling, like, so I walk into the complex, and the line for the confectionery. Well, I mean, you can get your tickets there, but come on, who I buy my tickets online? No, I don't go there. But that line was packed, the most packed I've seen it all year. Like lined up nearly out the door, packed. And I know my local cinema is having a showing of Wonder Woman like every hour, I think, at the moment. They're showing it like 8 times a day or something ridiculous. So that was great to see. I was happy because, of course, I'd been to the cinema a couple times during the COVID times. And, you know, the first time I went when they opened back up, I think I talked about on here how I felt like I walked in and they were almost like, oh my God, please, thank God you're coming to see a movie. Please come inside. Like, they were obviously going through some hard times. So I'm just happy to see, not as a local mom and pop shop cinema. It's a Village Cinemas, this one. So it's a chain, but I'm still happy to see that it's not going to, or hoping that business picking up, it's not going to suddenly close out of nowhere, or, you know, something shocking like that, which would completely ruin, well, it would suck for me, but it would suck for, of course, other people losing their more. But so that was great. And yeah, just sitting down in a cinema that was packed, hearing everyone talking, and then actually shutting the fuck up when the movie started, and then, you know, doing that whole thing where I'm walking out and I'm kind of eavesdropping on people's conversations they're having around me as they're walking out, and, you know, couldn't help but laugh walking out Wonder Woman, how the couple behind me is like, you know, what'd you think about it? And I think the girl was like, oh, I'd give it like a 5, and the guy was like, yeah, I'd give it like a 6 or something. And that whole experience just made me want to subtweet on Twitter, because, of course, in America, they've got it on HBO Max, and we've talked all about, you know, the pluses and negatives of, you know, the HBO Max, Warner Brothers deal last episode, and these movies going straight to streaming. And I am, for the most part, still 100% it's the right thing to be doing, because you shouldn't be trying to send people to cinemas in America or places that are still really struggling to get COVID under control. So from that aspect, I'm like, yes, very good. But also, with the release of Wonder Woman, it's shown one thing, which is that people, when not told to put their phones away and shut the fuck up, will just be like, I'm just going to live tweet Wonder Woman. Like, the amount of times I've been really annoyed, because the amount of times I've seen people on my Twitter, some I follow, some I don't follow, some who have just popped up because people are liking their tweets or whatever, who are like 10 minutes into Wonder Woman and they're like, oh, it's not very good, is it? Or, you know, like, they're just going for, you can tell they're just trying to get that one hot take tweet that everyone will like, or, you know, something like that. And I'm like, oh, fuck off. Like, just watch the fucking movie. Like, I've seen it for Soul too. People obviously tweeting about it when they're only like 20 minutes in or something, or, you know, live tweeting it while they're watching it. And I'm like, if you was watching these movies at cinema, you wouldn't be able to do this. So just watch the fucking movie, or turn it off if you don't like it that much. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about live tweeting a fair bit before, and I feel like obviously these movies coming to streaming services is not a good precursor, I don't think. Yeah. No. So, I will say, apparently, numbers look like Wonder Woman made $4.5 million over the weekends, which would make it the second highest grossing opening weekend this year, or weekend for a single film this year. The numbers only have Wonder Woman, so I'm assuming with the other films added on, it would probably be the largest grossing weekend since March this year. So that's promising. So, you know,
and they've greenlit the sequel already, so I mean,
yes. So apparently,
has to be enough money.
Warner Brothers is said to be fast tracking Wonder Woman 3 to conclude the long planned theatrical trilogy. Apparently, Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns had like beat out an entire story beforehand. Interesting, obviously, with Patty Jenkins confirmed to be directing the next Star Wars story movie, Rogue Squadron, in 2023. Obviously, that means this will likely be after that. I can't imagine it coming out before. I can't imagine them fast-tracking it that much. She also said recently, I know that I'd love to do a third one if the circumstances were right and there was still a theatrical model possible. I don't know that I would if there wasn't. So I guess if they want Patty Jenkins back on board, they're going to have to release purely in the cinemas. You know, if cinemas are still a thing in America by the time.
I was going to say, that seems like a weird subtweet, like it's not COVID's fault that all this has happened. You know what I mean? Like, if they put it back in cinemas, I'm sure Warner Brothers would have put it in cinemas because if they could,
they would have made more money.
They would have made more money.
Although apparently it did very successfully, it broke records. Where is this said? Wonder Woman 1984 broke records and exceeded expectations across all our key viewing and subscriber metrics in the first 24 hours on the service, and the interest and momentum we're seeing indicates this will likely continue well beyond the weekends. During these very difficult times, it was nice to give families the options of enjoying this uplifting film at home, where the theatre viewing wasn't an option. So apparently, half of all retail subscribers viewed Wonder Woman on the first day it was available. So, you know, that half of however many people have got HBO Max watch the film, which isn't surprising, seeing it was free. So yeah. So that got that going for us. I saw an interesting tweet online. Do you think Warner Brothers should have released it on another streaming service here in Australia as well, or elsewhere? You know, the tweet I saw mentioned that it would become the talk of the holiday season if it was available to everybody.
Well, I mean, just based off how many screenings my cinema's got and the amount of people that were in the cinema, I'm going to say no. People are quite happy to go to cinema. In fact, I think a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people, even though they would say, yes, I would prefer to have it on a streaming service so I could watch at home, a lot of the times, those same people would actually kind of want to go see it cinema because it's a reason to get out of the house. You know what I mean? Like it's, especially if they've got family or.
I think that some people are still struggling from lockdown PTSD.
Yeah,
they just still don't want to go out anywhere.
Yeah, because it's like, feelings aside for the movie, and that's because as I tweeted as I was going in, even though I didn't like it, I don't really care because it was a new movie I got to go see at the cinema. And I feel like most people, no matter how they feel, are probably going to feel that way if they haven't been to cinema for a long time. And I guess that's the big difference between us and America. So like people watching it on HBO Max, because they're watching it at home and they don't have the plus side of it being a cinema experience, if they don't like the movie, it was shit. It was a bad movie. I wasted 2.5 hours of my time. You know, whereas I didn't like the movie, but I'm still like, it was fun to get to go to the cinema to see a brand new movie for the first time in a while. So there's an upswing. You know, they don't have that upswing.
Yeah, it was fun to be in the cinema and hear people's overreactions to certain things happening on the screen. So
there was one thing that happened. I can't remember what it was, but you know, like at those awkward moments where everyone kind of goes quiet and then one person yells something, or they like, because I had one of those moments happen and everyone laughed at them in my cinema. I can't remember what it was for. But it was one of those really awkward moments where I'm like, I'd hate to be
really
that guy,
super memorable.
Yeah, it wasn't even a funny moment, just someone
trying to be
laughing. I'll tell you what, the one thing I forgot to call out in our spoiler cast that I tweeted about today that I forgot to mention, I felt bad that I forgot to mention, the one moment that I actually laughed out loud and I was like, fuck yeah, that was actually great, was my favorite moment in Wonder Woman is there's a delivery, Chris Pine at one stage when... This is a big spoiler to say. Like, you've seen the trailer, you know his character's in it.
He comes back.
He comes back. That's not a spoiler. He's in trailers. Anyway, so him and Diana, Wonder Woman, they're trying to, like, take this plane off. And she failed to mention that people will probably try and chase them down. And in 1980s, they now have radars to track planes and all this stuff. And as she all says this, Chris... What's his character's name again? I've already forgot.
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor. Steve Trevor, right. He like turns around after she says all this and he goes, well, shit, Diana. Like, and it was the best delivery I think you could ever get of that line. That was like absolutely perfect. And if I had to pick my favorite moment of the movie, it is that. It is the, well, shit, Diana. Like, it's just it's so good. That was the best.
All right. So I was lucky to go to a preview screening of Monster Hunter, the new film starring Mila Jovovich, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, the team that brought you Resident Evil, and all the other sequels. Obviously based on the Monster Hunter franchise by Capcom. Very inspired by Monster Hunter World, I feel like, obviously with like design wise, like title designs and that kind of stuff. It's a mixed bag. The CGI is fun. The monster designs are really good. There's a few solid scares and some funny jokes and that kind of thing. But there is no character. There's no story. And you know, the action is not good enough to elevate it to make up for the missing story and character. Pretty much Mila Djokovic leads a like Rangers team who are trying to find another missing team who have disappeared somewhere. They get swallowed up by some mystical storm and transported to another world, the Monster Hunter world. You know, and they have to try and survive. They come across Tony Hya's Hunter. He doesn't speak any English, you know, so it's that weird comedy where the two people are together but they don't know how to understand each other, but they got to work together. But you know, it was very cheesy and like no good dialogue anywhere, you know. And then Ron Perlman is in for a little while, and then it just kind of it is one of the most unsatisfying endings to a film I've had this year. Maybe even longer than this year. I can't remember a film that just kind of ended out of nowhere, kind of. You know, it feels like it was building to potentially another 10-15 minutes worth of stuff. Like they're going to fix another problem that suddenly arrived, and then it just cuts to black. You know,
give us the hashtag Anderson cut.
I don't. It's clear they were like setting up for a next film. You know, I don't know if I imagine it's probably going to happen, but because I was just astounded seeing people on my timeline like who actually like this film. It boggles the mind. But you know, if you want to go, if you're a fan of Paul W.S. Anderson films, fan of Mila Djokovic, if you like sitting in air conditioning, then I think there's worse ways to spend your time. But for anybody else, it's probably something you would better off. Like I say in my review, sticking to the video games. You know, you could probably get more story, character, and action in that. So, yeah, Monster Hunter. Coming to cinemas today, just released today, as of release. So yeah, you can read my review over at explosioninf.com. Alright. Dylan, you checked out the documentary Feels Good Man about Pepe the Frog, right?
Yeah, so this, I'd had my eye on this for a while, and I didn't know where to watch it, and then finally got around to watching it. But the pitch for this documentary is, you know, Pepe the Frog, you know, the meme. If you don't know the name, I'm sure if you Google it, then you'll recognize
you'll see
it. But
you'll recognize it, yeah.
Yeah. It's like one of the internet's most used common original memes. So this documentary follows the creator of the frog originally, Pepe the Frog. His name is Matt Fury? Yeah. Anyway, he created the character originally in a comic book series. I can't remember the name of it, but that's where the character originally came from. It was a comic book series that he created, like a webcomic. And then the internet being the internet, someone one day took it and turned it into a meme. And then over the years, it slowly became one of 4chan's most used and popular memes. And in case you don't know, 4chan is a dark side of the web forum. That's the easiest way to explain it. And it got to the stage where Pepe the Frog was actually listed on the American website of hate symbols, like alongside, you know, swastika, all those sorts of things. Like it was listed as a hate icon in like 2017, 2018, something like that. So documentary like tells you everything there is to know about Pepe the Frog, its history, its creator, and then also about Matt's, the artist, his ongoing struggle to try and sort of reclaim the character. And the documentary asks a lot of interesting questions, of course, like, in the internet age where people can just kind of take anything and turn it into a meme or use things in ways that may or may not have been the original intent from the artist. Like, what can you actually do about it? Some people in the documentary even sort of ask Matt why he never tried to reclaim or like fight for his character earlier, and it was only once it reached a certain stage that he cared to kind of try and fight for it. There's like what can you do once your character has just been taken to this point where most people don't even know you were the creator of it. There's just it's a very like 21st century, I guess, dilemma and documentary that covers a lot of interesting ground. It has interviews with a lot of 4chan users, all of which did not know who the hell Matt Fury was. They just loved the meme, obviously, and they talk about how it was used. Documentary also covers a lot of the Trump election period because 4chan kind of went on fire then. There was a period where Trump was like retweeting pictures of him being drawn as like Pepe and all these sorts of things, and like how that even caused even more trouble and all this sort of stuff. So I think it's sort of a documentary that most people should sort of, I don't know, I would call it a must-watch documentary to a degree. Like, you don't even have to have an interest in Pepe the Frog or also like this or anything that's in it. I just feel like it's a must-watch in that it covers so many interesting questions about the internet age that we live in now, and what you can do about it, and like what copyright does an artist hold over their own sort of stuff. And it also, for people who are sort of uninitiated in the dark side of the web, kind of covers how those people are brainwashed to a degree, to put it bluntly. So in certain sorts of acts and the way they talk and the way they use memes as they have a psychologist in the documentary talking about how like they'll use memes to say things, and then no one can ever say that they're like going too far or it's hate speech, because they'll always just be like, oh, but it was just a meme, it was a joke, even if it was like a super discriminative like image or something. Like they're always just like, well, like where's the line these days of what is and isn't I guess hate speech and all these sort of things. But no, it's really good, really interesting documentary.
Cool. Then you watch the movie Queen and Slim, written by Lena Waithe.
Yeah. Queen and Slim is, I was trying to find who is the, and Slim, just put it in the fucking thing here. Directed by Melina Matsoukas. I think I got it right. Yeah. Written by Lena Waithe, James Frey, the co-writer. Starring Daniel Kaluuya and Jodie Turner-Smith. So this look, I'm gonna spoil like the opening 15 minutes, because I'm sure it's spoiled in the trailer because it's the setup for the movie. But I went into this without really knowing anything, so everything was a shock for me because I never actually watched the trailer or anything for this movie. So this movie starts with a couple out on a Tinder date, and that's your two leads, and then it has this really great scene where they're just kind of talking in this restaurant or whatever, and then they're heading home. Cop pulls them over. Cop is trying really fucking hard to find any reason to arrest them, like searching high and low for reasons to arrest them. One thing leads to another. The cop ends up shooting at one of them, and then the other one like tackles the cop to try and stop what's happening, and then long story short, they end up killing the cop. And then that's the opening 15 minutes, and then the rest of the movie is kind of like it's kind of weird to say, but it's like Thelma and Louise, but or like, yeah, I guess it's like Thelma and Louise. Like, it's just kind of like this couple on a road trip trying to escape. They have like a goal, which is to kind of survive as long as they can and figure out what to do. And the rest of the movies then is just them on this sort of road trip through America as they're trying to run and hide. And I guess one of the complaints you can make about the movie is there are a couple times where they stop to have these sort of side tangents throughout the movie. Like they stop at bars or like, and the reason they always do this stuff is it's always like, well, we could be arrested tomorrow, we could be dead tomorrow. So they keep having these moments of wanting to stop and do things that they never got a chance to do, like living their life in the moment, kind of. And there's a level that comes off that of like, but you're being chased by the fucking police. Stop pulling over to do random things and get the fuck out of America, or like whatever you got to do. So, but it's really highly enjoyable. It's got great dialogue. Both the leads are fantastic, especially Jodie Turner-Smith, who I'd never seen before. She is an absolute standout in this. Cinematography is great. Great music throughout it. Great use of music throughout it. Yeah, it was a really great movie.
Cool. You also checked out the documentary Time.
Did I? What's that?
The one about the wife fighting for her husband's release on Amazon.
Oh, no? Fuck. Yeah, right. Yes. Oh, fuck. Man's blank. Right. Time. No, Time is really fucking good. Again, I have questions about how people come across these things and like how things like even how projects like these even start. So Time is about this woman, Foxrich, who is fighting for the release of her husband, who is serving a 60-year sentence in prison because he robbed I think it was a bank or something like that. And she was a co-accomplice, and she got like some sort of deal or whatever. But the movie like tells you straight up. Like, I guess there's an interesting thing about the movie. The movie isn't like some... usually when you're watching things on Netflix or whatever, it's always like, oh, but they didn't do it. Or like, it's always like some twist. Whereas this movie's just straight up like, they did it, but also 60 years for like, you know, it just asks a lot of interesting questions about, does the time fit the crime, or like, you know, like how do people grow? How do they change? You know, like all these sorts of things. It never really asks you to say what they did wasn't wrong. It's just asking a lot of interesting questions, I guess, about the prison system in America. But the thing that makes the movie stand out is it has all this footage from when he was like on trial through the years going past that of her and her kids, because she was like selfie vlogging all this stuff. And I don't know if she was uploading this somewhere, like maybe on her Facebook, or it seems like she was just recording all this stuff to send to him, like in prison, or like was saving it for him, of like, because they have kids. She was pregnant when he went to prison with their like second child, I think, or something like that. So a lot of it seems like that she's just recording this stuff for him to watch later or when he gets out or something. But the way it's all like edited is like beautifully, and it incorporates this new footage. And the new footage, I would go ahead and say that the new footage shot in this movie of like current day Foxrich and other people they have throughout it is probably the most beautiful cinematography, if not top 3 cinematography I think I've seen all year. Like, and that's in like, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that it isn't black and white as well, but it just has so many like picturesque, almost, they're like portrait painting is the best way I suppose I'll describe it as. But it is well worth watching just for the cinematography of the modern day stuff. It's also a very, I guess it's a documentary I'd describe as a poem in a lot of ways. Like, it doesn't flow like a normal documentary. It doesn't look like a normal documentary, especially by the time you get to the end, and the way the end is sort of cut together with a whole bunch of footage from their childhood through to the rest, through to like where the movie ends, and like the music that's playing. It's just a very I know it's poetic finish. It was a really beautiful film. It's on Amazon, so you can watch it there if you've got Amazon Prime. It's only like an hour 20, so it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. Other than the fact that a second ago I forgot what the title of the movie was, it is it is a really good movie from one of the best documentaries I've watched this year, and I feel like I've watched a few this year. So
yeah, Speaking of Amazon Prime, you also watched Palm Springs, one of my favorite films of the year. Did you love it as much as I did?
I liked it. I wouldn't say I don't think I loved it as much as you did though. No, it is a lot of fun. Obviously, I feel like it helps to have watched other movies like Groundhog Day before this one, because this movie sort of is
Rips
poking
off those,
fun. Yeah, like it's like making fun. But the chemistry between Andy Samberg and what's the girl's name?
Kristen Milotti.
Yeah, the chemistry between those two is fantastic. That's obviously what makes the movie so much of joy. But then also you throw in things like J.K. Simmons, which I didn't even know he was in this. I don't know. Again, I don't think I ever watched the trailer for this movie, so
Clearly weren't listening.
or maybe I forgot. I don't know. But yeah, J.K. Simmons is having a ball in this movie, I feel. So that was a lot of fun to watch. No, this is fun. This is literally just Groundhog Day, but making fun of itself at the same time, mixed with like a rom-com.
Yep.
And that's the movie. And that ticks all of the boxes for you, I feel. Yep. I thought it was very good. I don't think I loved it as much as you, but I did laugh and I did enjoy it. I mean, it's Andy Samberg. If you like Andy Samberg, you're gonna enjoy this movie.
Let's move into the mandatory Netflix segment of the show. So I checked out Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, the latest adaptation of August Wilson's work. If you don't know, August Wilson's a famous playwright who wrote 10 plays that are commonly referred to as the August Wilson century cycle, because they're all set within a different decade of the 20th century. These are all stuff I will say, obviously there's a companion behind the scenes featurette that I watched afterwards that kind of explained a lot of this. So I think that's definitely worth watching if you watch this film. Obviously, I feel like the main reason people have heard of this film and will be watching this film, one, is very good. Two, it's Chadwick Boseman's last performance. He's astounding in this. Like you can't take his eyes off him when he goes into. Obviously, it's based on a play, so there's a lot of like long monologues and that kind of thing. So he gets to really deliver like these really sprawling, long speeches, and he's just amazing. And it just kind of makes you sad that he's not going to be around anymore to deliver things like this to the world. Viola Davis plays Ma Rainey. So pretty much the plot of the movie is Ma Rainey is a famous blues singer in the South. She comes to Chicago, which is in the North, where they don't really care about her, and they're still like kind of iffy about black people. And she acts a little bit like a diva, and they're trying to get this recording session done. So Chadwick Boseman is part of the band. He plays like the trumpet and stuff, and he's got his own visions of being a successful trumpeter and have his own band, and like he's writing songs for the record producer and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of set within like a 4 or 5 hour period of them trying to get this recording made, old-fashioned style on vinyl. So it has to be perfect and that kind of stuff. So there's drawbacks, and there's there's Ma Rainey's like a difficult person to work with and that kind of stuff. So Ma Rainey, played by Viola Davis, is really good as well. I thought it was really good. I wasn't like amazed by it, but obviously it's very much a play brought to real life, like into a setting. But yeah, again, I'd recommend watching it just to watch Chadwick Boseman's last performance, because that's a worthwhile thing to see. And then kind of spinning off that, I watched the documentary Giving Voice, which is a documentary following the August Wilson monologue competition in America. So a lot of like underprivileged or like mostly a more diverse range of children get to compete in this competition that celebrates August Wilson's plays. They deliver like a monologue, and then the best work the way up to be able to perform on Broadway one night, and like there's a huge cash prize and everything, and it kind of explores a bunch of the kids competing and that kind of stuff, and it gives you a better idea of August Wilson's life and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a really interesting, another interesting companion piece to have with it. Also, you get input from people like Viola Davis and Denzel Washington and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, if you interested to find out more about August Wilson and his life, that's definitely something worth check out. And a lot of the kids are really interesting and have their interesting perspectives and reasons to get involved into this thing. So yeah, that's really good. Then I also checked out today, I think it was just released in the last day or two, Charlie Booker's latest project, Death to 2020, which is pretty much just a mockumentary going over the past year, recapping a lot of the terrible events that happened over the year. If you can't remember what they were, I'll be surprised, and there's a lot of good gags and just like one-liners. Lawrence Fishburne narrates, Samuel L. Jackson appears, Lisa Kudrow, Hugh Grant, Kumail Nanjiani, Kristen Milotti's in this one as well. I thought it was a nice tonic to the end of the year, like feel better about things. They're told from multiple perspectives. Kristen Milotti plays like a full-on Karen kind of lady. Kumail Nanjiani plays like a billionaire who's like, solution to the world coming to an end is to hollow out a volcano in America, in New Zealand, and like built his own safe house. That's his. He heard Greta Thunberg at the beginning of the year talk about climate change and everything, and that's what he decided to do with all his money, his billions of dollars. Build a safe room for himself. So yeah, lots of good gags and that kind of stuff. One of the lines that tickled me was the coronavirus. It was a disease that baffled doctors, and then it doubled down by killing them. The good line. Well, I think it was a little bit better in the film, but it's only like an hour and a bit. I think there's a few other projects like this so far coming up, but yeah, I
Is this your first Charlie Brooker thing?
I guess technically.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any Black Mirror, so
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a nice capper to the year worth checking out. Obviously all shot very obviously shot COVID safe and that kind of stuff. It's very mockumentary like that kind of stuff. So yeah, like if you felt bad about 2020, this might be a nice thing to get you over the line. Well, I guess not now because we're already in 2021. Everything's fine now. But if you want to go back, you remember 2020.
Yeah, who wants? Yeah,
for some reason, historical reasons.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into a little bit of news. So a bit of controversy around the Golden Globes this year. Apparently, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association has made the controversial decision about which categories A24's new family drama Minari will be able to compete for. Though the studios are allowed to choose which categories the films are submitted in, the 89 journalists from around the world are the ones who choose whether or not to accept them. Unfortunately, they've decided that Minari is primarily in Korean and will not be allowed to compete in either of the regular Best Picture categories. It will only be accepted in the Best Foreign Language Film. So this kicked up a bit of a storm. A lot of people came out against them. Obviously, Lily Wang, director of The Farewell, which also got a similar treatment last year, even though that was American film and only like half in Chinese or Cantonese. I think I remember which version of Chinese the film was in. Daniel Day Kim came out and had things to say on Twitter as well as Simu Liu, the upcoming star of Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. It's a lot of people have pointed out films like Inglourious Bastards and Babel, which are mostly in foreign language, have been able to compete in the Best Picture categories in the past. So, Dylan, what has the Hollywood Foreign Press got against Asian people?
That's a very good question, and I don't have the answer. But I agree with everyone's complaints. Like, I can't remember what actor it is that was showing that thing about Inglourious Bastards. Like, I saw a clip from a red carpet interview they did last year about it when I was being asked about like The Farewell last year, and they brought up on the red carpet somewhere about Inglourious Bastards, and it's like one of those things where once someone says that, you're like, well, yeah, like you can't really argue with it because it's literally just fact. Like they have Inglourious Bastards is primarily actually in German. And there was no kerfuffle about that at all. And then The Farewell, which is, as a lot of people have pointed out, is actually a very American movie. Like, it's about the American story of a Chinese family or whatever the
it's an American going back to China to visit her family.
Yeah. And like
And
the whole story is from that point of view of being a Chinese American from a Chinese American family, and like dealing and like having to reconnect
the
with
cultural difference and
cultural differences and reconnecting with like your family roots and all that sort of stuff. But like that movie is very American, like for like that. And the fact that it wasn't all in English was it's like, come on. So yeah, I don't know. Hashtag Golden Globes racist, I guess, is the.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it should be eligible for both categories. Just because it's in foreign language doesn't mean it shouldn't be eligible to be in that. But I know for a fact that the Hollywood foreign press just wants to put the most number of films to be eligible for stuff as possible. That's their thing. They want to get the largest grouping of people nominated so they can have the most amount of people come to their show, so they can rub shoulders with all the famous people. Probably not going to do it this year. Probably rubbing shoulders with these people. This is the place that gave The Tourist a Best Picture nomination. So, I mean, and they made The Martian a comedy. Yeah, so
the category doesn't really make sense to me either. Like, it should, like, I don't think foreign language film really makes sense anymore. Like, if you want to have a category, like, if you want to have one category and be like, it can only be for American produced films, and then you've got one that's for non-American produced films, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, okay. But if you want to be like, it's for foreign language, that doesn't really make sense when when you live in a world where, there are so many American produced movies that are using non-English as the one of the key languages in it. So it doesn't really make sense as an award.
No. So I'm just quickly looking at the Oscars, which obviously there won't be any issues at the Oscars. If it's worthy of being in the top films, it will be one of the top films. Because Parasite is its best international feature film. So just any film not made in America.
Yeah, theirs kind of makes more sense. And then the only kerfuffle everyone had last year was like, well, if it's nominated for best international feature film, should be allowed to be nominated for best picture as well. And that's the same argument as, well, for games nominated for best indie game, should it be able to win best game of the year? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I guess it's just in a category that generally does not get buzz to be best picture. It's the same as best animated feature or best documentary.
Yeah, but they could
if there was
nominated.
a documentary that could be considered best picture, I would be perfectly fine with that. If there was an animated film that should have been in best picture, which there have been many, I don't think many people could complain. I feel like obviously international.
There's only a few times where there's actual crossover, but it's like that's the thing. Like, best picture should just be whatever. Like,
it should just be best picture.
Yeah, it should just be best picture, and then all the other categories have their own. Like, if they wanted to please everyone, causing kerfuffle over Parasite, it wouldn't actually be to change any of the other awards. It would be to add an award that is best American produced picture. But then if they did that, unless they're going to have more crossover between all the other categories, you would just end up every year basically having whatever wins best picture just being best American produced picture. You know what I mean? Like, but in a perfect world where more animation stuff and documentary stuff was being nominated for best picture, then you could, like, imagine a world where at least one animated movie, one foreign film, one animated, like one from everything is nominated for best picture as well. Like, one from all those categories is nominated for best picture as well. There, in that world, I would be like, okay, introduce the category of best American produced film, because then you would have like at least one nominee from all of those, and then a handful of other things in the best picture category. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would kind of make sense at that stage, I guess, to introduce another category. But
yeah, it's an odd one. But we all know the Golden Globes don't really matter. So
no, they're just a bit of fun. Have a bit of laugh.
It's a bit of fun. Have a good time. Someone will make jokes. But there is another interesting one that was eligibility news coming out of the Golden Globes. Disney Plus's Hamilton is set to be eligible for the best musical or comedy film for this year's upcoming Golden Globes, and also the actors in the film will also be eligible for best lead in a musical or comedy or best supporting actor or actress. This seems odd. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, it's
obviously it's a filming of a live
show.
Yeah. Should it really be eligible for a movie award? Should it technically be a television? Should it have been eligible for Emmys?
In my mind, it's a TV special. Like if you were to ask me to categorize it, that's what I would categorize it as. It's a TV special.
If it had to come out in cinemas, then what would you have?
I guess if it...
Or is that just
cinemas,
that's...
Well, I mean, that'd be like me... No, even then I'd still probably... I don't know, it's like saying I watched a Doctor Who premiere in the cinemas and all of a sudden that's eligible for a movie. You know, like there's some stuff in cinemas that isn't an actual movie, so... I don't know. Like, this is one I definitely feel a bit weird about, solely because it's kind of opening a whole can of worms that it's just adding a lot of confusion to, when you boil it down and you're like, but they are actors, and you're like, yeah, they are acting, but like it's live acting. So like, like from a performance, like, but they get nominated for a Tony Award, and then they record the show. And then you can get nominated for an Academy Award. Like, is that how the road's going to go now? Like 5 years from now, whatever's sweeping up at the Tonys, they're like, okay, time to make a production of it, film this shit, put on Disney Plus, and we'll go with some Academy Awards at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bit interesting. Obviously they haven't given any rulings on the Academy Awards, but it's an interesting precedent. I mean, it could work out in the long run very well, because then we could see more of these Broadway musicals be actually shot and released for the general public to watch, which would generally be considered a good thing. If they decide there's money in doing that. So those kind of things become more accessible and that kind of stuff, which I feel like we've talked about before. But yeah, it feels a bit odd for something that was shot.
Or is it just a COVID
2-3 years ago?
Like, is it just because there's not much this year? Is it just because there's not much out this year that it gets nominated?
I mean, it's eligible. It won't necessarily be nominated.
No, but I mean, like, would it have even been nominated in any other year with more stuff releasing?
Maybe. Hamilton's really good. Have you watched it yet? Is it going to be eligible for our best of 20?
I mean,
we haven't discussed this, so.
I mean, it depends. You tell me now. Do you deem it a TV or a movie thing? So.
Well, it's a TV movie, so it's a singular piece. So I think it would technically. What if we had Bad Education, the HBO film with Hugh Jackman?
I know.
That would be a movie.
I know.
Anything that releases on Netflix is technically a movie.
Yeah, I think it is just the fact that it's a live performance that
it just kind of throws it.
It froze it.
Because I can't think of anything else.
No,
I
have nothing else to compare it to. So I honestly don't know. Like, I want to say no, just because I don't really like that being a precedent. I guess I don't know. Like, even though it's not going to happen very often, obviously, I guess that's the thing. Like
yeah,
there's not going to be a million things suddenly filmed over next year that's going to get nominated or whatever. So it's a weird one. I don't really know. I honestly don't know.
Don't know. And I guess it's a problem we'll come to in the coming weeks. Then the other piece of news, MGM apparently is again exploring whether they're going to try and sell their company. Obviously, MGM, the company that, the production company that owns lucrative titles, mostly the James Bond films, which we all know, the Rocky franchise. Apparently, they own the premium cable channel Epix and was behind shows like The Voice and Handmaid's Tale. Of course, everybody knows MGM. It's the one with the logo with the lion at the start. everybody makes jokes of. But apparently they shopped themselves around to like Apple and that kind of stuff. Word is that their price tag is around the $5.5 billion mark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure somebody's going to pick them up, right?
Oh, like, I think I feel like their hottest property is James Bond, but like it's hard to even to measure how much James Bond's worth in the year 2020.
So,
you know.
Yeah, so upcoming films from MGM include No Time to Die, Addams Family 2, Snake Eyes, Legally Blonde 3, and Jordan Peele's Candyman.
Jordan Peele's Candyman. Really looking forward to that one.
Yeah. And then previous films have done, obviously, Tomb Raider in the previous years. They did the Sherlock Gnomes. They did Star is Born, Spectre, Poltergeist. They did the Hobbit films, and obviously they got the G.I. Joe franchise. But yeah, I think, obviously, we kind of hope Disney doesn't buy them. I think I would be surprised if Disney put their money behind this. I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers does pick them up, because obviously they've had a lot of crossover recently. But then, of course, you've got places like Netflix and Apple that could pick up these massive studios and the massive libraries for their own streaming services and kind of thing. So, of course, MGM is a company that's changed hands like so many times. Apparently, they went back in the 2010. They've been owned by so many different people. It's crazy. So, and also the setting for the recently released Mank. So, it would be interesting if they ended up as part of Netflix in that regard. All right. So that's all the news we got for this episode. Let's move into our top 10 TV shows of 2020. Obviously, a big year for TV. Lots of TV shows come out, and lots of free time to watch TV shows for a lot of people. But yeah, these will be our own personal takes of what were the best shows of 2020. If you want to know what the Explosion Network has decided to be the best show of 2020 is, just go to explosionnetwork.com. We've done a bunch of different categories up there. Best supporting, best leads, best moments, best episodes. Of course, best show of the year. So check that out over there. But Dylan, what is your number 10 show of 2020?
Number 10. Big surprise, because it's a more recent one. And I kicked something out for it, but it is actually Arnie Donner's Big Old House of Fun.
Oh!
So obviously I only binged that a couple weeks ago, I guess, or whenever it was. But I have since gone back and watched several of the skits. I've been devouring all of their YouTube content. Some of which I realized that I've watched but never actually knew it was them. So I was like, wait, I've seen this before. But no, that show it's something special. It is just outlandish, ridiculous, nonsensical comedy with a lot of really catchy songs that shouldn't be catchy, including the classic I'm Just Making Some Brown, which for some reason I keep singing to myself every now and then. And I can't wait for more. I want more now, really, is the thing. Like, that's how I can tell it was a good show. The fact I've gone back and rewatched some of it, never usually do that. Usually got so much other shit to do. The fact that I'm like literally just, like looking for skits to rewatch because I find them so funny. The fact that I've devoured all the YouTube stuff and just keep watching it. And the fact I just want more now. Just give me more Artie Donner stuff.
Give me more.
Yeah, so I'm giving it to Artie Donner's Big Old House of Fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So my number 10 is season 2 of The Umbrella Academy. I really enjoyed the first season. Cool family dynamic. I think obviously season 2 has raised the bar. This season they actually like each other, which is a nice plus. It's set in the 1970s, around the John Kennedy assassination time. Just all the different storylines and all the different characters. I thought obviously Diego has the strongest season. Vanya has the strongest season. Klaus gets really good storyline in which he's struggling with he starts a cult based on him, and then he's trying to save the love of his life from going to the Vietnam War, enlisting to the Vietnam War before he goes. It's all very confusing, and all the time travel stuff. And Five is a great character. I really enjoy him. So yeah, Umbrella Academy season 2. Definitely looking to forward to season 3. Hopefully it is coming next year. Yeah, great cast, great story, really enjoyable. Dylan, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is The Great, season 1. So this show, for people who don't know, is a very much basically fictional take on the Sir Peter the Great and his wife Catherine during the 18th century in Russia. Even though the whole show is in English, because that's the least of this show's things to get wrong at this stage. But it's written, created by Tony McNamara. I've got it. It's fucking perfect. Who wrote The Favourite, which we talked about on the show some stage. And that movie is more serious than this, but it carries the same sort of retelling of history, but not allowing a lot of fucking lies and jokes and playing around with what is real and isn't real. The thing that makes this show so funny is just the chemistry between Ellie Fanning as Catherine and Nicholas Hoult as Peter. The fact that a lot of stuff that's happening in the show is kind of dark when you think about it, like the fact that Peter's always talking about killing people and all this sort of stuff, and then she'll come in and be trying to swam a little bit of freedom, or the fact that this sounds so weird to say out loud, but the fact this show has so many sort of gags, I guess, about her trying to keep herself from getting pregnant when she's almost to a degree getting raped at times, and that's played up for gags. It's the show nearly rides on.
It's pretty dark at times.
It's pretty dark at times when you think about the the jokes. But I think the reason that's also a testament to how good the show is, because it rides a lot of lines, but you're never like, "Wow, that's too far. You've crossed it." Whatever. Yeah, you've gone down the weird road here. But it's really funny. It's really well written. The whole cast is great. Huzzah.
Huzzah. All right. My number 9 is Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. This was a new series that came to Stan, aired on NBC off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure in America, starring Jane Levy, who plays a computer programmer who, after a MRI scan, magically gets the ability to hear people's innermost thoughts through the form of song. One of the most feel-good shows of the year, but also one of the most heartbreaking shows of the year. She follows her father's slow decline with PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy, over the season. So these heart songs being the only form of communication between her and him to a certain degree. Really enjoyable series. Sure, there's the will they, won't they love triangle thing. She has a gender fluid neighbor played by Alex Newell, who's a ray of sunshine and is super enjoyable in the show. Even though some of the songs are on the nose and that kind of stuff, it's super enjoyable. Always fun and always really interesting. So season 2 is about to release in the next week. So I'm definitely keen to check out where they go from there. So yeah, check out Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. My number 9. Dylan, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is Dead to Me Season 2. So Dead to Me, the first season was a show in which Christina Applegate's character was dealing with the loss of her husband, who was killed by a speeding runaway driver. And in the first season, she got to become friends with Lena Cardellini's character, and by the end of that season, you learn that Linda Cardellini's character was actually was in the car that killed her husband. She was the partner of the person who ran him over, who's played by James Marsden, and she went out of her way to track down this woman and become friends with her because the guilt was kind of too much for her. So she tracks her down to try and becomes friends with her, and then of course the first season has this whole weird dynamic of the fact that she purposely set out to become friends with her, but then she actually really likes her, and then they become really good friends. And then, of course, by the end of the season, you have this whole
reveal.
Yeah, reveal. Plus, she's now got a second load of guilt, which comes from the fact that she really likes this person now, and she's been lying to her, and it's lots of like lying upon her on top of line. And the first season ended with. By the way, obviously, we're spoiling. I feel like I'm not spoiling stuff for second seasons out. I'm not going to spoil stuff for
not for the current season.
Not for current seasons, but obviously to talk about current seasons, I feel like the floodgates open for previous seasons. But in the season finale, it ends with Christina Applegate killing, or presumably killing, James Marsden's character, the person who killed her husband. And then when this season starts, you're like, wait, what the fuck's going to happen? And in the first episode, they completely throw a giant spanner in the works. And at the end of that episode, I was like, well, this show's going to go in a completely interesting direction from now. And the second season was just as much fun as the first. It has it continues along the dilemma of Linda and Christina Applegate's character sort of trying to mend their relationship amid all of the lies and like figuring out what was true and what's not true and like how they can actually be friends going forward and trying to work with one another. But the second season's big spanner is basically that Christina Applegate's character is now hiding a big secret from Linda Cardellini's character, but you know it from the start as an audience for the most part. So you kind of like, why are they going through this? Why do they keep doing this one another? And then some other things happen. Really interested to see where they go for season 3, which apparently is going to be the last one, which I think is a good choice because, like, obviously the season ends on a cliffhanger, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this cliffhanger, but sure. But then when they announced next season was probably going to be the last, I'm like, okay, I guess I feel a bit better about the potential direction the show's headed in. But also, the show has probably one of my favorite episodes. If I was to do my own like personal top 10 ranking, there's a really great episode where the two of them basically go to this bar and Christina Applegate's character breaks down about like all the pain she's been feeling about since the death of her husband, which she never really opened up about for the entirety of last season or even this one. So it's probably one of the more emotional episodes I think I've seen of stuff this year. So that was really great. And Dead to Me in general, I feel like is a show that more people should be watching because it's on fucking Netflix and everyone has it. And I'm like, this show's great, but not enough people talking about it. So.
All right. My number 8 is The Mandalorian season 2. Obviously, we really liked season 1. Season 2, I feel, has like a better overall season arc. Obviously, there's fewer standalone episodes than there potentially was in the first season. Obviously, we see the line between live action and the animated worlds of Star Wars blurred even more with the introduction of different characters from the animated series, from the Clone Wars and Rebels and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't want to say too much. Obviously, we talked about it extensively on our Mandalorian after show, The Mandalorians, which you can find at explosionera.com. But yeah, just this season was like a fun ride, being able to watch it as soon as it comes out every week, excited, and then seeing all the jokes on Twitter afterwards. I mean, it was a good time. Yeah, and keen to see what comes next. So yeah, Mandalorian season 2. Dylan, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Star Wars as well, but it's the Clone Wars season 7. So I think obviously I kind of got on record somewhat. Clone Wars is my favorite Star Wars thing, which I feel like is blasphemy because you're supposed to pick a movie, but I say this is an animated TV show. So I was really happy when they announced that Disney Plus was going to finish off the show after its cancellation, of course, when Disney originally picked up the Lucasfilm. They originally cancelled it at the time, and now we got to return it and see it through to its end. The final 12 episodes broken up into 3 story arcs, all of which were really great. But of course, it's that final couple of episodes, the battle against Darth Maul with Ahsoka, Ahsoka's seeing through Order 66, the all of these things that we that we knew the show was presumably going to have happen, but then not really knowing how big and how out there they were going to go with it. I've watched the final couple of episodes, that final arc of this of the Clone Wars through several times before already this year. I could easily put it on and watch those last couple episodes back to back to back many times. I probably will not get sick of it anytime soon. Of course, Ahsoka is my favorite Star Wars character, so a little bit biased there, but it is like Shattered. The penultimate episode is easily one of my favorite 20 minutes of Star Wars anything. Like, it's just it's a culmination of long form Star Wars storytelling in that, like, I don't think it's a big spoiler to say that episode is when Order 66 happens, and seeing Order 66 happen in front of Ahsoka after 6 seasons of getting to know her through more time than we get with any of the other characters throughout the prequel trilogy, and then also getting to know a few of the clones, including Rex, then that is when Order 66 actually feels the most sad and horrible and like a terrific, like a horrific event, more so than it does in the movies, because it's kind of like you're just showing all these Jedi and they're dying in Revenge of the Sith, but you're like, yeah, this sucks, but like I don't really feel any attachment to them. But in this, because you have such more attachment to the characters, it's so much more impactful. So Clone Wars season 7 is my whatever pick was up to 7. Forgot where else.
Yep. Number 7 for me is The Queen's Gambit. I think probably the best made TV show on my list, like from production value across the board, cinematography, beautiful. Obviously, Anna Taylor-Joy has had an amazing year. I think I would argue that she is this year's Florence Pugh, in which she's kind of broken out in the same way Florence Pugh did last year on the back of Midsummer and Little Women. Anna Taylor-Joy seems to have had a similar thing with obviously Queen's Gambit, and then her role in Emma early in the year. I guess New Mutants also came out this year, so and she's got big things ahead of her. Really interesting story of obviously Beth Harmon, playing this drug-dependent teen who becomes a chess prodigy and like made the world of chess an interesting prospect. We've seen apparently the interest in chess has skyrocketed in the event in the months after this series released. It's been one of Netflix most watched scripted miniseries. It's crazy that this series kind of blew up, this project that's been in the works for a long time. Great supporting cast, especially Marielle Heller as her adopted mother. She's really good, and Thomas Brodie Sangster as her rival / coach / love interest and that kind of stuff. So yeah, Queen's Gambit, 7 episodes. Do yourself a favor and watch it. It's one of the most well-made things this year, and I suspect we'll be talking about it again come any time next year. So Queen's Gambit, number 7 on my list. Dylan, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Ted Lasso, the Exposure Network's official pick for best TV show. So
spoilers.
What? I mean, it's up.
Spoilers if you're only listening to
if
this.
If you're only listening to this and you haven't looked at online or anything, but yeah. So I won't really say much, I guess, because we're doing a bonus episode talking about it. That'll be on the feed. Should go listen to that. Hopefully it's up around the same time this post or something. That would make sense. But no, Ted Lasso is, I guess, it starts out as a sort of atypical, what do you call it? What do you call this sort of comedy? What's the word? You watch all these sorts of shows. What's the word?
Just sitcom.
Yeah, that's it. Sitcom. I forgot what it is. Yeah, it starts out like sort of sitcom, but I think it's the fact that over the course of its first season, it sort of breaks every single stereotypical character it has in the show. And every single character that starts out as stereotypical breaks out of that mold and becomes a real person, which is weird to say, but a full character. That's the reason this show's so good. That paired with the fact that it's really funny, which of course also helps it. But I think the reason that the show is so special is because of its writing and its characters, and the fact that all of them, and that's not even like overselling, but all of them who you think are stereotypical, but they didn't wait like 5 seasons. In the first season, they're like, okay, we're gonna swiv it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Very happy to see that. My number 6, with a rocket, it's Haikyuu, the volleyball anime TV show that thankfully our own Kieran Marchant introduced me to. First episode came out January this year. Last episode was like 2 weeks ago. Amazing show. It probably was not going to be on my list until the last few episodes, in which everything the series has been working to so far, especially certain aspects of the season, but then it calls back a season, something from the end of the first season, all culminates in one of my favorite episodes of the year, The Monsters Ball. I think I watched that episode in the week after it released like 6 or 7 times. Just 'cause it's loved it so much. It's crazy that the show just about high school volleyball would be such a amazing, enjoyable series, and tense, and all these interesting characters, and these kids learning, how to be better as people, as well as, being better volleyball players, and their commitment, and their commitment to their craft, and being better, and working as a team. It's all these beautiful elements of sports that you love. Beautiful, incredibly animated show that couldn't be told in any other format, I don't think. So if you haven't checked out Haikyuu, definitely check it out. The first 2 seasons, I believe, are on Netflix. After that, you'll probably have to head over to Crunchyroll. So apparently, I just checked. Season 3 came out 2016. Season 4 came out 2020.
Wow.
So I'm not keen on the idea that there's a potential long wait for a 5th season. So that was a disaster.
How many episodes was there? The first episode aired January, and then you had...
There was 25. They did like a mid-season break.
Okay.
So they stopped in April, and then they came back in October.
You'd think they'd do less episodes and like have a season every year. Like they could have done like 10 or 12 episodes.
They could have, but why not?
Okay.
I
don't.
Yeah, some of my favorite moments of television this year are in this series. So yeah. Haikyuu. Dylan, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Sex Education season 2, which
I'm going to cut in here because Sex Education is also my number 5.
Oh, there you go. So time. It's equal measuring for Sex Education, which I feel like this one of those shows. So it came out very early January, so a lot of people may forget that actually came out and forget about it, but we certainly didn't. Made sure to get it on lots of our WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That worked out quite well. But I think Sex Education is one of Netflix's best shows they've got running at the moment. The first season kind of came out of nowhere. I remember sitting down to watch the first season, like expecting nothing, and then being kind of blown away with how great the writing was and all the characters were and everything. And then obviously season 2 is just a continuation of it. Of course, it builds upon all the characters we already knew, but also throwing some great character building in there, especially when it comes to characters like Adam in season 2, where in the first season he was this sort of homophobic bully, I guess is the easiest way to describe him, and then by the end of the season you get to feel sorry for him a bit given his family life, and then season 2 that continues and you've got some really interesting directions of his character. Season 2 also introduces some interesting, you can call out the big characters, but like Anwar, for example, like in season 2, I was trying to find other characters that got like sort of interesting directions for their characters in season 2. Like, I think that's the thing that stood most out to me, is that it didn't just build upon all the big characters. I feel like all the side characters who often in ensemble casts like this, especially shows with lots of like kids, quote unquote kids, a lot of the side characters just stayed the same throughout the entirety of several seasons runs, but already in season 2 they're showing that they're not forgetting the ones in the background, which I quite appreciate. Standout episode for me for season 2 is episode 7, where it's, without spoiling anything, it's just like this highlight episode where all of the girls, after having a lot of bickering amongst themselves, plus also problems with romantic partners and all these other family life, and one certain character's actually gone through a rather dark event, and they all kind of come together to help one another, and especially her during that episode. So I think that was the highlight for me. And then on top of all this stuff, making it sound like it's a drama, the show is consistently very funny as well when it's not playing with real elements. I guess that's the thing that makes this show so good, like many other shows we're talking about, even like Ted Lasso. It's like they're really funny, but the characters are so good, and when it's tackling like real dramatic themes, it does them so well as well. Like it does the comedy and the drama so well. So
yeah. I reviewed it all the way back in the start of my review was dated 7th of January. That came out like 10 days before it came out. I said, for me, Sex Education has set the bar for all other shows in 2020, and the bar is very high. And I think I was completely right. This is obviously the kind of the show that all other shows were judged against for the rest of the year. Great work across the board. Obviously, a stellar cast. Music in the show was really well done. Score done by Ollie and Julian, and also the music, like random music choices they choose as well. The setting and everything. Also, the second season sees them less doing the
monster of the week
sex
/
psychology.
Sex psychology of the week.
Sex problem of the week, yeah. And have more of a progressed, like, arcing story and that kind of thing. And all the fun side tangents. Somehow this season ends with a
musical
version of Romeo and Juliet that is completely alien tentacle themed.
Yep. It was great.
That's a thing that is perfectly fine and
it's great.
get away with.
It's great.
Amazing. And yeah, just to seeing all the different people's arcs this season. Obviously Adam having the most one of the most different arcs to what we expected after season 1. Really enjoyable show. Everybody should check it out. Hopefully season 3 is not far away.
I'm thinking I went, because I remember I went and looked before when I read that news story when they posted about them starting it, and that was that was a few months ago. So I don't know.
All right. Yeah,
it's possible.
All right. So that's both our number 5s. Dylan, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is The Haunting of Bly Manor, because it is perfectly splendid. I feel like this series or this show is one that a lot of people who didn't like it may like. I feel like this is a show that's going to grow. People are going to like it more as time goes, and people are able to separate it more from The Haunting of Hill House, the first series, if you want to call it like a connective thing or whatever. But even though they're completely different shows, this series has some of the best performances of the year in it. It has some of the best cinematography of any TV show I've watched this year. It has my favorite, I guess, TV romance, or even several of them. It's, again, I've said this before without spoiling the show. The Haunting of Bly Manor is basically a romance. It's not really a horror. It's not a horror thing at all. It's not very scary. That's why most people don't like it, because they went in wanting it. It is a romance. That has ghosts in it. And it also has some kids who are being some pains in the ass at times, and sometimes they're not. But otherwise, it's 8 hours, or roughly thereof, of great, spooky feels. And you'll cry at the end. And if you don't cry at the end, you're a monster.
Okay. My number 4 is High Fidelity, TV series starring Zoe Kravitz. Released on Hulu in America, subsequently cancelled, unfortunately. Obviously, a retelling of the original Nick Hornby book, but obviously has very much ties to the 2000 film. I think it's 2000. Obviously,
John
gender
Cusack.
bent with the John Cusack film. Yeah. Obviously, gender bent where Zoe Kravitz plays Robin Rob Brooks, the owner of Championship Vinyl. Again, her dealing with her top 5 most heartbreaking stories. Top 5 most heartbreak, whatever. it's her dealing with all this stuff set in like modern day. Obviously, you get all that like music critic stuff. In the first episode, she goes on a long rant about rumors by Fleetwood Mac. They own a record store. I feel like they made a lot of interesting choices to make it more interesting to a modern audience. Supported by who was it? Davine Joy Randolph as Charisse, who plays the Jack Black character, and then David H. Holmes, who plays Simon, who is the other guy who also happens to be gay, who also happened to be one of Rob's previous heartbreaks, because they were together and then he realized he was gay, and then it's heartbreaking.
Classic.
But yeah, super enjoyable. I think it's better than the film, even though I watched the film after watching the series, so I'm biased. Yeah, and I'm just heartbroken that there's not going to be a season 2. I think this is one of the shows that the pandemic failed. I think it came out Valentine's Day, right before everyone kind of went into lockdown. I think if it had come out a little bit later, this would be talked about by even more people because everybody would have been watching it. Yeah, so High Fidelity. It works as like a 1-season miniseries, so you can still go back and watch it. Is currently available to stream on ABC iView. Otherwise, you can buy the episodes on iTunes or Google Play or whatever. So yeah, check out High Fidelity. Dylan, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is AEW Dynamite. I mean, it wouldn't be a personal list without me putting this somewhere high. I feel like I wouldn't be true to myself. Obviously, this year I got back into wrestling via AEW, and I've devoured a lot of its content throughout this year, and also it's led to me going and buying a lot of indie wrestling pay-per-views at this point. So I mean, it's kind of not just AEW at this point, but it is what by one show that I watch weekly ever since I started watching it in March or whatever. So it's been one consistent throughout the entire year. And I'm not just putting it high because obviously it was like a big part of my 2020, like getting into AEW and wrestling, but I also think it is just a very good show. I think the fact they managed to consistently put on really good shows given COVID and the pandemic and everything, I think the way they adapted to COVID by having the wrestlers face and heels on each side of the ring and like cheering, and that's kind of how they did a lot of their pandemic shows. That added a lot of didn't like completely make up for the lack of crowds, I guess, but it still
added some
energy. It added the energy that's kind of void of the competition. If you watch their Thunderdome stuff, that's that canned sort of, it feels like a canned laughter type stuff watching that when compared to this, because at least there's some people there cheering. And now in the last couple months, I've managed to get back small numbers of crowds in the show, and they've managed, by all accounts, they've dealt with COVID like as best as you fucking could while trying to maintain safety measures and still continuing to put on these really great shows and continuing their storylines when they can. And yeah, AEW Dynamite was definitely one of my, that's like 2020 in a lot of ways, like me getting back into wrestling and getting into AEW this year. That's like probably, if I had to pick one thing that was sort of my highlight of 2020, I would say wrestling would be number one for me. Like, you know, so that's why it's number 3.
Cool. My number 3 is The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls documentary series. I guess technically a Michael Jordan documentary series that played over 5 successive weeks. Thank God they put out double episodes every week, because I don't think I could. As much as I enjoyed the show, I just wanted more, and I was very glad to be getting it so frequently. It was a show that I was waiting after. I think it is just a beautifully told story of that time for a lot of people who like basketball or who like sports stuff and didn't necessarily know exactly what happened during that period. Well told. I think they get obviously a little bit biased that around Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was involved in the production, but yeah, it was something that I had to watch as soon as it dropped every week. It dropped like Mondays every week, so I wasn't working, so I could watch it as soon as they come live. Devour both episodes, see who Michael Jordan got upset with this week and scored 50, 60 points on, and seeing all the memes pop up around the show. Just ridiculous. They get just the interviews of different people, all these different people who are involved during his career. Yeah, friggin' Barack Obama talking about Chicago Bulls for a little while, Justin Timberlake, and his impact on the shoe industry, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I thought one of the best documentary series, and it was a real joy to watch, and there were some great moments in there, like someone calls out the owner of the company during a press conference for why he's screwing over the team. He's like, "I'm not screwing over the team. This press conference is over." Like after the first question, one of the other journalists is like, "Nice work, Jerry."
I think I've seen that meme or like that clip actually.
Yeah, it's great. So really good. Last Dance. Check it out on Netflix. My number 3 of the year. Dylan, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a show that is criminally underwatched because it's not in English. It is Dark season 3. So Dark is 3 seasons of sublime, well-written, shockingly well-written television that manages to somehow, in 26 episodes, tell both the most, at times, seemingly convoluted story that somehow all comes together by the end of the show. And I think the fact that, and look, since we're talking about season, I kept not wanting to spoil any of this show because, like, every time I've talked about it, because I still want people to watch it, I'm going to spoil, like, the base setup now because I'm talking about season 3, so fuck it. I went into this show not knowing anything when I watched season 1, right? But whenever it was, can't remember that. Last year. Yeah, because I watched 1 or 2. Yeah. Went into season 1. Description for the show just says something like, a family saga where there's like secrets and stuff. I'm like, okay, cool, give it a go. So I watch it. In the first episode, you find out that there's a tunnel, like a cave or whatever in this town, and then when they travel through it, this kid like manages to time travel, and that's why the kid goes missing. And the current day, they're trying to find the kid, but they're not going to find the kid because the kid's gone fucking time traveling. They don't know how to do it. So the show has time travel. They don't set that up in the description of the show at all. So I always found that like interesting how that was kind of kept a secret. And then by the time you get to the end of the second season, or even the first season, the show is more than one timeline, more than one time period. You've got older versions of characters, you've got younger versions of characters, you've got alternate timeline versions of characters. Like, the show gets fucking ridiculous. But as someone who loved Fringe, and that show did not land everywhere, I feel like this is the best version of like what Fringe would want to be, with like multiple timelines and characters and like all this also. This show's like, I don't know how the creator, because it was one dude, right? One dude, what's his name? Baron Bo Oda, right? So he's the creator, someone alongside someone else, but like he was the head dude and like he directed everything. So I'm putting everything on his arms for this, but I don't know how they ever mapped this show out and like did not like accidentally fuck something up timeline wise or leave like a weird red herring or make something not really make sense. Because by the time you get to the end of the last season, it's only 3 episodes. That you start that season 3 and you're like, okay, better start wrapping things up now. Like, we got only 8 episodes. Let's get to work. And they're like, nah, fuck you. How about we introduce more timelines? And I'm like, it's the last season. Stop introducing new timelines. There's no way you're going to make this all make sense. And then by the time you get to the end of the episode, the finale, titled The Paradise, not only are you crying because it's like one of the most emotional finales to anything I've watched all year, but you're also like, they fucking did it. They somehow made this all make sense and work. And If you was trying to, it's one of those things where you have to have been along the journey. Of course, if you try and explain the ending to someone, they'll be like, "Well, that sounds stupid." It's like, well, of course it's going to sound stupid to you because you haven't watched the fucking show. So you watch the goddamn show. But Dark is one of Netflix's best shows. Full stop. Easily one of their best shows. Full stop. I love the fact that it was only 3 seasons and it was just this very tight, concise storyline. It has fantastic characters. Has great finish. Season 3 was fantastic. Everyone should watch it. Stop being like, oh, I don't want to read subtitles. I don't want to watch it. Watch Dark. It's fucking great. If you like sci-fi, if you like time travel, if you like great characters, if they're the 3 ticks, for fuck's sake, watch Dark.
Okay, I guess I have to watch Dark. So my number 2 is Schitt's Creek season 6. Obviously, I jumped into Schitt's Creek this year. I got in right before the bandwagon left off, and they swept the Emmys. But, becoming the most winningest show in a single year. Amazing. Obviously, it is a little bit of all these seasons kind of blurring together, but I feel like the 6th season definitely deserves all the praise it's gotten. Everybody, the 4 main characters played by Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Dan Levy, Annie Murphy, amazing to see their transformation from season 1 to where they end up in season 6, where everything finally kind of, after becoming good people, things start to come together for them in a good way. Super, super lovable. Can't believe a show that completely devoid of any homophobia is so good, it's so important, and just the concept of having a show that doesn't talk about homophobia and just imagines a world where it didn't occur is kind of crazy and revolutionary to a certain degree.
You can make a show of gay characters without making one of their key storylines how they overcome homophobia or some such, or their parents hate them, or like some.
Yeah. So super. I really love the show. Ends on a high note with this big series finale with a wedding, and everybody lives happily ever after, kind of. But yeah, super. In a year with so much darkness, this was a definitely highlight to experience this show and all its goodwill and good feelings. So that's my number 2. Dylan, what's your number 1?
I feel like at this stage you've been listening to this goddamn podcast for more than a couple of episodes. 75 episodes in. I'm pretty sure I've picked the same thing every year, and guess what?
Every year it was eligible.
I've picked it. And guess what? Nothing's changing, people. Best show last year, according to me. Better Call Saul, season 5. That's right. Your boy Jimmy McGill. No, I mean, look, Better Call Saul, in my mind, and I think I've said this before, the final season's coming up. I think as long as they don't fuck up the final season, in my mind, Better Call Saul is going to overtake Breaking Bad. I think the show's kind of already overtaken Breaking Bad as having consistently better writing, better character arcs and all these things. And that's not to say that Breaking Bad's suddenly shit. I just think Breaking Bad's really good. Better Call Saul's a bunch of the same people who worked on that show with all the experience of working on Breaking Bad suddenly doing another show, and surprise, all that experience means they've worked at a better show, which is Better Call Saul. You can watch Better Call Saul without having watched Breaking Bad. I think I've said this before, but I'll just I want to re-emphasize it for people who are like, I know you're talking about this show all the time, Dylan, but I don't feel like watching it because I don't want to watch Breaking Bad. I'm like, you don't need to watch Breaking Bad. It helps to watch Breaking Bad to get, I guess, understand the context of the season opening black and white scene that you see once every fucking season. And every now and then there's a character crossover. But other than that, you can watch it. The main thing that makes this show so special and is what's kind of come fruition over the last 2 seasons, season 4 and 5, is you've had new characters, one of which has become my show favorite in last season, which is Rhea Seehorn's character, Kim Wexler, who, when the show started, you were like, all right, she's like Jimmy's maybe will they, won't they love interest, friend, like a lawyer, whatever. She's not in Breaking Bad, so she's probably going to be like not important. And then the way they've built up her character and the road she's gone down, especially in season 5, catch me on Twitter yelling about the fact that the Emmys did not nominate her for a fucking award when her performance in season 5 is one of, if not my favorite fucking performance of last year, full stop. She was so great. It's a fucking crime. The season 5 also had just the best episode, I think, of the show, which is called Bagman, where Jimmy basically goes out. He gets asked by Lalo, one of the members of the I can't remember the family's name, the mob, whatever they're called. He's like, hey, can you go out to Mexico and pick up some bags of money from my family and bring it back so I can get bail? And he agrees for some dumb fucking reason. So he goes out to the desert to pick up $7 million in cash. And surprise, surprise, some very happy onlookers were quite happy to try and take that cash off him. And the episode ends up with Jimmy kind of stuck out in the desert and on the run with his bags of cash. And it's like this survival horror episode where he's somehow trying to not be captured / surviving with absolutely none of the right supplies. And it's you get to learn a lot about like kind of what pushes him to survive through those moments and other things. Another big shout out as I wrap up why this show's one of my favorites is season finale has one of the best action scenes of the year in any show in my mind, full stop, which is saying something because obviously Better Call Saul is mostly a talking show. Like it's just people having conversations. But when this show does action scenes, it does them consistently rather well. And the season finale was no different. So it has this, I'm not going to spoil it, but it has this amazing shootout and action scene. And it basically turns the season's villain, who only got introduced in season 4, but Lalo Salamanca, played by Tony Dalton, who has been both an absolute scary menace and also one of the best memes you can find if you type Better Call Saul into Twitter GIFs, because there's a great one where he just like winds down a window and he's like smiling full bowl at someone because he's just a sarcastic fucking prick, really. But he like has this kick-ass action scene and it sets up the final season. You're like, oh god, I don't know how this show's supposed to wrap up. Like how people are going to survive, who's going to die, who's not going to survive. Like we know that Jimmy's going to survive because of course Saul Goodman, as he now goes on to be known as, ends up in Breaking Bad. We know that Mike, Jonathan Banks' character, ends up Breaking Bad, but there's so many characters and directions we don't know where they're going to go, and we also don't know what the fuck after all these seasons of having these black and white flash forwards that are set after Breaking Bad if they're ever going to pay off to something. So best show of 2020 and my most anticipated show of 2021 for sure is season 6 as well.
Cool. And my number one is Ted Lasso. The show that I know it's been described as a show that was built for the pandemic, but I think that's kind of rude because I think the show would have worked anytime, any place. I think this show would probably be one of the biggest shows in the world if it wasn't on Apple TV Plus. If it was on Netflix, I think everyone would be talking about it, and we wouldn't. And everyone is talking about it, but it's surprising that they are because obviously it's on a service that a lot of people are kind of reluctant to pay money for. But yeah, I loved it. I think it's a perfectly built show. Works perfectly over that first season. Jason Sudeikis, amazing, kind of against type. Amazing that they built this show around a character that they made for ads for sports, for Premier League coverage, like 5-10 years ago. Is absolutely crazy that it's all come together like this. And yeah, we'll be talking about that on our discussion about the best TV show of 2020, Ted Lasso.
Here's my one question. I think we can have here. Do you think that it's lucky we did that Apple TV Plus special?
No, I'd seen the buzz around it slowly building, and I'd watched it, and I kind of purposely put that together, so I had a place to talk about it. But yeah, if you want to get a preview of that, you can go listen to our Apple TV Plus discussion where we talk to Simon Blackburn from Take My Tone, talking about all the Apple TV stuff, and we talked about it there. It was his number one Apple TV show.
He predicted the Explosion Network's number
yeah.
show. And your number show.
Number one. So, number one.
That's the only show we have crossover.
Right.
Oh, no. That and
Sex Education.
That's pretty good. We only have 2 shows crossover. I mean,
yeah. And I checked against last year's list. There was nothing on my list that was from last year, on last year's list.
I would have had, I think I had Sex Education.
I think you had Sex
Education. And I would have had, no, Better Call Saul didn't come out last year.
Yeah, Dark, yeah.
I had Dark, so that was it. So I would have had 2 shows, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, great. You said you had some honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. Right. So these weren't included for several reasons, and they'll stand out as I get to them. Firstly, I want to shout out to Stuntman / Artist React on the Corridor Digital YouTube channel. Great series that I've watched throughout the entirety of the year. All of that React stuff. I think that's like a show that kind of took off for them this year as well. Like because they started doing the CGI artist React first, and then of course they started the Stuntman React series, and they started the animators React and whatever else. And all of those are consistently really interesting to watch because they're specialists in fields that you don't usually hear talk about their fields. So that's why they're always really great to watch. I kind of wish that every time I watch one, I'm like, why wasn't this longer? Like, keep going, do more. I don't know. So that's definitely one of my favorite things I've been watching this year. The Chef Show. So I got 4, by the way. I'm not going to go forever here. The Chef Show is another shout out. So that was one of my favorite things I watched this year. Although I would say my favorite was they did that whole weird thing where if you look on IMDb, it's like season 1's like over 2 years, but they released like 10 episodes and 6 episodes at the start of this year or whatever it was. And then they released like 4 or 5 episodes of season 2 at the start. But my favorite stuff's all from the stuff that came out last year, not from this year. Either way, that's a show I really, really enjoy because like I wish I had more time to cook kind of. I enjoy cooking, and I guess that show is the type of show that makes you want to do cooking because it's not like pompous. Like it brings the fun back into cooking, I guess. Like just hearing, I can't remember his name, the head chef on it, like just talk to Jon Favreau about it. And I guess it's also the fact that Jon Favreau, by means of making that movie Chef, and then by like that made him kind of fall in love with cooking to a degree that he decided to just do the show where they would just cook with random celebrities or people or what have you. And then you also learn a lot throughout that show about all the food trucks in LA and all that sort of stuff, which I find really quite interesting because it's basically the punk rock equivalent to being like, fuck you, I can't do a restaurant, so I'll just sell food out of a truck in a fucking car park. So that's really good. My third thing, shout outs, was Being the Elite. I guess it just ties into AEW, but Being the Elite was consistently obviously something I watched throughout the year. Really great ancillary thing to watch if you're watching AEW. I mean, Ash watches it and he doesn't even watch AEW weekly, so there's like a
that's where I learn what's happening.
So it works that. And then my final shout out would be Euphoria, which I watched earlier in the year. That would easily be in my top 5 somewhere. It's of one of my favorite best things I've watched this year, but it came out 2019, of course. So that's my final shout out. I haven't watched that fucking special yet. I'm hopefully gonna I'm hopefully have time very soon to watch that special because I know the part 2 special comes out like I think in a couple days by the time this is out or something. It's like out early January or something like that. So, and then I'm looking forward to season 2. But Euphoria is definitely one of the best things I've watched this year, but it just didn't come out this year. That's my honorable mention.
Yep. If I was going to do honorable mentions, probably say the season 5 of Queer Eye. I rated it very highly. It's more Queer Eye, but it'll make you feel good. Over on Apple TV Plus, Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet, great season, definitely worth checking out, as well as Central Park, the animated series, the musical series, super fun. If you like musicals, that's something worth checking out. And yeah, I other, obviously, your basic stuff, Brooklyn Nine-Nine stuff, lots of stuff Dylan's mentioned, like the great, DC's Legends Tomorrow, another great season. You should definitely check that out. And yeah, My Hero Academia. I'll check that out as well. Another good season of that. All right, well, I guess that brings us to the end of this episode of What Do You Want to Watch? If you want to also let us know your top shows of 2020, or what shows that we missed, what shows we got wrong, let us know on Twitter by going to explosionetwork.com/Twitter. If you want to help us out, leave us a review either on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, tweet about the show, tell your friends about the show, tell them that, Ted Lasso, show of the year. Facts.
Also, that you can find all of our best of 2020 stuff by heading to explosionetwork.com/best of 2020.
Find it all there, or check the show notes below. I'm sure I'll chuck a few different things in there. Thank you very much for listening. Looking forward to talking to you more in 2021. And until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.